Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Adam Goodman, partner at Ballard Partners. Adam, thank you so much for joining me.
Great to be with you now that we're in a whole new world.
We are in a whole new world. So where we are right now, it's about a month after Election Day. Donald Trump won, as we all know, in November, and he wasted really no time in selecting people to fill up his cabinet. And these picks have ranged from anything from controversial to lauded by both parties. So I do want to talk about them because there are a certain grouping of them that hail from Florida, and I would love to talk about the Sunshine State nominees. But first, overall, what is your assessment of Donald Trump's cabinet picks?
I think they're fabulous overall, and it's for a simple reason. As a country, we've been complaining for years about the system, that the system was letting us down, that things weren't working right, that things America used to be esteemed for around the world were no longer in play, like our best days were behind us. We wanted something different. Well, Donald Trump is going to bring that something different. You want change? You're going to see real change, not incremental, not at the edges. He's going forth with everything he's got, and he's now selecting people to serve with him that are equally committed to the same idea.
And obviously, Donald Trump, it's been said he has won because people wanted change. People didn't want the status quo. They were rejecting the status quo in Kamala Harris. So where do you think we are going to see these big changes with these cabinet picks?
Across the board. I mean, literally across the board. You're seeing, you'll have, for instance, Pam Bondi, who's been nominated to be the next Attorney General. And she is going to be looking at everything within the Department of Justice with kind of with not only fresh eyes, but with an intent to make it work better than ever. And with the Department of Justice, it's really about reinstilling in Americans a sense of confidence and belief. I think they've lost a lot of that over the last couple of years. We've had a lot of questions raised about the impartiality of the Department of Justice and parts within it, the FBI and others. I think those things are going to be addressed. And when things change, and I think they're going to change markedly, I think that has maybe the potential of lifting America's confidence in something we shouldn't question, which is law and order.
Let's talk about Pam Bondi a little bit because she is Donald Trump's second attorney general pick. The first one, Matt Gaetz, took his name out of the consideration. Then he picked another Floridian, Pam Bondi, who served as Florida's AG before. Who is she? Because she isn't a national name in the way that Matt Gaetz was.
Well, Pam and I go back a long ways. In fact, it was a conversation I had with Pam in a very cold day in Baltimore. That sparked her interest and ultimately her decision to run for Attorney General. And then I was with her all through the campaigns that proceeded from there. She is a boots on the ground, hit the ground running kind of person. She's got grit, she's got experience, she's got strength, she's got compassion, and she's got the ability to communicate. She's very real. I remember when in the first campaign for Attorney General, Brittany, we did a focus group with 12 people, 12 women actually, and wanted to get their impression of Pam versus the rest of the Republican field. And they all, by the end of that focus group, all said, we like Pam. And the head of the focus group, the moderator, said, why? There was a universal answer. We trust her. There's something about Pam and her presence and her command of facts and, of course, her background that engenders trust and belief. And I think that's good. That's something that has not been maybe in long supply in the Department of Justice for a while. So I think she's going to do very, very well. And if you want a kind of a measure on how she's regarded, well, law enforcement really loves Pam because they know she's always had their back. Other attorneys general really like her for everything she did as attorney general on both sides of the fence. And one of the unknown stories is one of the people she liked a lot when she was attorney general was an attorney general on the other side of the fence. His name, Beau Biden. And I think they had a tremendous relationship because even if they disagree philosophically, ideologically, legally on some issue, they really, I think, enjoyed working kind of in parallel to each other and sometimes with each other to get things done. I think that's the kind of attorney general America is going to grow to love.
And I think that's important. And that's something that seems like, politics of the past, of where you can separate your political differences and come together. And people do want to see that. That has been obvious this past election season. So what do you think the DOJ would look like under Pam Bondi?
Well, that's something she's going to have to figure out once she's confirmed, right? I think it's going to be, there are going to be a lot of new dynamics to the Department of Justice. I think the first and maybe most important thing they need to do is to rid the perception that the Department of Justice is partisan sensitive as opposed to partisan blind. I think that's very important. Pam has been a law and order type of player from the beginning. She really loves the law. She loved becoming a lawyer. I remember her commencement speech I attended years after, not her commencement, a commencement speech for others that she was actually the guest speaker for. She loved talking to these young men and women who are about to get into the practice of law. I think she's going to be a serious lawyer. And the good thing about her ability to communicate is she's going to be able to make, I think, people in America understand even better what the Department of Justice is doing, why they're doing it, and why it makes sense.
And obviously you and Pam Bondi go way back. As you said, she is replacing Matt Gaetz. Are you happy that he's out? And do you think that Matt Gaetz is a litmus test for Trump's cabinet picks, where it's almost like, okay, he crossed the red line there, but these other controversial picks, as long as they toe that line, they might get confirmed?
Well, I think Matt is a unique case. Obviously that didn't work out. He never got to the real starting line on a confirmation. I think Pam was an easier pick for the president, frankly. But if you look across the board, Brittany, at others that have been nominated, Marco Rubio, wow, you talk about, as much as Pam is central casting for Attorney General, how do you find someone more qualified and ready to hit the ground running than Marco Rubio, who has tremendous foreign policy chops and experience and feel, and will do something I think we haven't seen from the Department of State in a bloody long time. I think there's going to be a lot more focus on our hemisphere, Latin America in particular, where it goes, for Marco, goes beyond where his parents came from in Cuba. It goes to the entire Southern Hemisphere, and I think there's an opportunity for the United States of America and the countries that populate this part of the world to pull together and do for each other more than ever before. You get into nearshoring, you get into security treaties, but I think he's going to be very exciting. He believes, like President Trump does, by the way, no surprise, peace through strength, a Reagan doctrine, right? And he believes in projecting that not only in conversations with our allies, but more importantly, our competitors, and our adversaries from Iran and Russia to China. And I think you'll see that from him. Remarkably good pick.
Senator Marco Rubio has gotten praise from both sides of the aisle as being a strong pick for Trump's Secretary of State. I was even talking to Democrat Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I asked about the pick, and she said, I don't agree with Marco Rubio on much, but he's qualified for the role. So what do you think this pick indicates about Trump's larger vision when it comes to foreign policy?
Clearly, he wants to rewrite the book. We've seen some of the things from the first administration. I think that will start to really take root. He got a lot of press, and not all of it was positive from some parts of the world, about NATO and about every country paying its fair share. He meant it then, and he means it now. And I think now that the members of NATO see him back in play, and the European Union, they're going to take that very seriously. So I think he's going to be able to make kind of a fundamental shift happen there. And in the Middle East, my prediction, we're going to see, I want to say peace in the Middle East, but we're going to see a resolution in the Middle East in the short term that reflects, I think, Trump's ability to be able to bring people together. It's funny you say that, right? When you say he's bringing people together. And unity is one of the things you hear a lot from President Trump now. I think he's actually going to do it. And finally, in Ukraine, there's no way, in my opinion, that the current administration was going to bring everyone to the table. It just was not happening and wasn't going to happen. I think Trump actually could do that and maybe bring that terrible situation in for a landing as well.
Talk about that for us a little bit. Why do you think that Trump's cabinet, Trump's people, Donald Trump himself will be able to bring these global players to the table when for the past 4 years we've seen multiple wars throughout multiple regions really spin out of control?
I think there's been a perception, fair or not, that America is not as strong as it used to be in terms of its influence around the world, or that its word was as strong as it used to be in places around the world. I think you're going to see a difference on both of those fronts. And, the whole Reagan doctrine I referenced before, peace through strength means something. So like in the Middle East, if rulers in the Middle East have a choice between dealing with someone they perceive as strong or someone that is weaker or more into conciliation, they prefer strong. They understand strength of leadership, and I think Trump projects that. He oozes that. And I think that's going to be a big motivator for countries around the world to actually start talking to each other differently than they have. He sat down with and had discussions with the leader in North Korea. I'd call him Kim Jong crazy. But they had the discussion, much criticized in some places. I think it was great that with some of your worst adversaries, your biggest adversaries, you're actually sitting down and having a conversation. That's better than not talking at all, in my opinion. I think you'll see a lot more of that in the years ahead.
There have been fears from Democrats and Republicans alike that with Trump at the helm once again, America will become more isolationist. Do you see that as being the case, especially when you're looking at these cabinet picks that Trump is selecting?
There's a fear that we're going to become isolationist. Yes. I don't buy that because people say, well, it's because he says America first. I think you can only help best when you're strongest closer to home. And I think what President Trump wants to do is make sure America gets back on its game again in a big way. In doing that, his belief is that he then can help in other parts of the world. In terms of policing the world, I think those days are long over. In terms of becoming a leader and leading by example throughout the world, I think maybe, just maybe, some of our best days are ahead.
Well, that's a really optimistic tone you have, that paired with the excitement you have for some of these cabinet picks like Pam Bondi, like Marco Rubio. Do you think, based on these picks, based on Trump's rhetoric, based on how the world has changed in the past 4 years, that Donald Trump's second term is going to look much different than his first?
Totally. You can see it, too. You can see the body language. Start with that. He looks like a more confident, more at peace individual today than he ever has on the world stage. He just projects that. And I think he learned a lot. When he first came into office after the 2016 election, he's a businessman, an outsider, came to Washington, had to learn on the fly, and it was not easy. And I think there were things that probably in hindsight he would have done completely differently, including some of the selections for those people that surrounded him who were not on the same play sheet as he was. So he came in this time. They not only, I think, ran a very disciplined campaign, they were also very disciplined about the possibility, were he to win, that they would hit the ground running and have already been way downstream on vetting the kinds of players they thought could help him carry his agenda, not only to the rest of the country, but to the world. That is very different right now. And all the reports out of Mar-a-Lago right now, every one of them, it's like, I don't want to say it's a party, it's like a celebration that finally all these people that for a number of years have wanted to really get in play again to be able to finish the job are going to have that opportunity in the next 4 years.
And what do you think the government looks like day one, maybe the first 100 days, if we could peek ahead here? Because it sounds like, you said he's throwing away the playbook. He's really taking a sledgehammer here to government as we know it. It seems, based on his rhetoric, he's implementing the Doge department with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. What do you think those first days really shape up and look like?
They're going to be exciting as hell. That's all I can tell you. They're going to be full. They learned something also from the first term. They need to hit the ground running. They need to get some accomplishments. They need to get them within the first 100 days. You're going to see a lot of action, for instance, Brittany, on the border. There's going to be no okay, we're going to go to Congress and we're going to try to get things to happen. No, they're going to take some faster action. And that Holman, who's going to lead that effort, the border czar, is really squared away and is really ready to get the job done. We hear about deportations. You're going to see some deportations for sure of those who have broken the law. I think those people who came here illegally and break the law don't deserve to be here. I think you're going to see the tax cuts reinstated, which has a lot to do with the nerves of the economy and the stock market. And I do think abroad, Brittany, there's going to be something that's going to happen that's going to reassure the world that it became just a little less dangerous and a little more predictable than it was when he was headed to the finish line this past November.
And do you think that we will see peace in these different regions like Ukraine, like the Middle East, where there's been turbulence really for years now?
Well, that's why I qualified rather my remarks about the Middle East and peace in the Middle East. In a relative way, I think we can bring things into a much better place. Obviously, what happened the October before last shook up everybody. The reaction to that still has shaken up a lot of people, but it kind of called the question, like, where do we stand? Who do we stand with? And can we draw the line fairly so that if even those who are not with us, they'll at least know that if they cross that line, there is consequence, as opposed to if they cross that line, we'll just draw another line and then another line, right? I think you're going to see real progress. And boy, if there's one place on earth that really needs it, has needed for a very long time, it's the Middle East.
We've had obviously a busy election season, and then, like I said earlier, like we've been talking about, Trump hit the ground running and trying to assemble his cabinet, assemble his administration. We have the holidays coming up, and then his inauguration's right around the corner. What specifically are you looking out for between now and then?
Well, I think it's really the latter. I mean, the most important thing between now and inauguration, between getting your inauguration tickets, right, get to one of the balls, those are fun as heck, are the confirmations. And I think some of the first confirmations, I think, will probably involve people like Marco Rubio and Pam Bondi. I think they're going to be well downstream with those well before inauguration. Of course, those begin right after the Senate convenes. I think it's January 3rd. So that's the first thing to look at, how smooth that process is for what will be a couple of weeks, right? That'll have a lot to do with first impressions about not only the quality of the team, but also the American support for Donald Trump and the team he's bringing to the fore. And then after inauguration, I guarantee you're going to see things move and move quickly. It's not, and people are suspecting, well, it's going to be the bureaucracy against the president and the administration. To some degree, it will be, because change is not an easy thing for people, Brittany. It just sometimes scares people. But if you believe in what we're saying to each other, in poll after poll, 7 out of 10 Americans or more think we're just not on the right track. What are we waiting for? And Donald Trump has heard that loud and clear. He thinks his mandate from the last election, which was not a close election, at least in the Electoral College, it was a landslide. His mandate, he believes, and I think he's right, is get it done. Let's see real change. Now, by the way, at the end of the day, if real change doesn't work out as planned, then that's something that the administration will have to be held to account for. But they will not go quietly into the night when the doubters say, well, we've never done it that way. It shouldn't be done that way. What were you thinking? All he's going to say to them is, what you did was not working. Shame on you for stopping us, the American people, from getting the job done.
And then if voters don't like that change, they can decide at the ballot box in 4 years from now. But I know you think that Bondi and Rubio will sail through their confirmation. What about someone who's now probably the most controversial, Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary? He's been really just slammed with a bunch of allegations, everything from drinking, being too drunk with coworkers, to more serious sexual allegations. Do you think he's going to have an easy time? Do you think he's even going to be confirmed at all?
It's the question of the day in Washington. Will he even get to confirmation if he gets to the hearings? Does he get the good housekeeping seal of approval if he does move into those hearings? A lot of people are asking a lot of questions. What is most important when you talk about cabinet nominees, Brittany, is how do they handle the heat in the kitchen, so to speak, right? So one of the tests in these confirmation hearings is not, did they fly through with flying colors on their final exam? Did they answer all the questions right? It's more how they answered the questions. And when they got the tough ones, how they respond. If Pete Hegseth gets to that moment in the Senate confirmation hearing, the whole thing will come down to his ability to measure up to the moment. Of course, his background in television won't hurt.
Exactly. And before I let you go, I do want to ask one more Florida-centric question. If Marco Rubio does, in fact, get confirmed, that'll be an open Senate seat for Governor Ron DeSantis to fill. Reportedly, Donald Trump has been in Governor DeSantis' ear, asking him or pushing him to select his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, to fill the position. What do you think?
Laura Trump, first of all, Laura Trump would be, if that were to happen, and these are all the dominoes, right? So if Pete Hegseth doesn't make it, if Ron DeSantis is then elevated to head of the Defense Department, that opens up the governor's office. By law, by statute in Florida, the lieutenant governor is the first one to emerge. But there's some suggestion that she may or may not do that, depending on other offers she may be getting. I think that if Laura Trump is the one that was is selected for that opening, it's a tremendous pick. She proved her mettle, in the last election. She's very smart, and it's no small matter that the Trump name will continue well beyond 2028 in a state he loves.
Well, Adam Goodman, I always appreciate our conversations. Thank you so much. And we do have plenty more to talk about in 2025. Thanks for joining me.
Looking forward to it, Brittany.